Hi everyone, how are you? I'm happy to meet you all through this little video explaining how to find the mean of ungrouped data. It was my long-time desire to reach out to the students through their screens to make the learning more joyful and a happy process. Sometimes when I teach in the classroom, I find students are finding it hard to cope with the students. They have a peer pressure and then they hesitate to ask questions to the teacher. So when the lesson goes a little faster or a little slower, they get lost. So I'm just in view of that, I'm just creating this little video so that the students can pause when they wanted to, and they can work out similar type of questions, and they can gain their confidence and develop their concept very clearly. So the objective of this video is to give you more confidence and interiorize the concept more clearly at your own pace. So today I have taken a topic of mean of group ungrouped data. So we have seen this. This is a new topic. This has been dealt from grade 7 and grade 8. Now we are in grade 9. So the lesson that you're going to see is for grade 9, finding out a mean of ungrouped data. So in your earlier classes, you must have studied the measures which tend towards the center. For example, mean, median, and mode. So you must have been a little clear with the idea that you have learned in earlier. So let's do a little recap. What does that mean? What does that mean to me? So we use another word, the very similar word, average. So what is an average? Sum of all observation and the number of observations. So when you divide them, the ratio between the sum of all observations and the number of observations is called average, or in another words we call it as a arithmetic mean. Why do we need it and how do you use it in your daily life? For example, if you go to school and you get your marks and then you try to find out the average mark, that tells you in one glance what your marks are and what is your capacity of scoring, and then the temperature of a city. So if you're trying to know the temperature that's in that city, so if you find the average, that gives you a little idea about the temperature in the city. Likewise, the height of the people in a particular age group. Okay, so these are the simple ways that we use mean in our daily life. So in the previous classes, we have done for some little data that has been given to you. For example, if I given 5 to 6 observations, what do you mean by observations? The observations are the data that has been given to you. So they are called the observation. Okay, so when you have a very simple, very minimum observations, then you can directly add them and divide by the number of observation and find it. So I have given you a little example of a question. Okay, so where you have find the mean of first 5 multiples of 7. So the concept that we are learning here is finding out the mean. What about these 5 multiples of 7? These are the previous knowledge that you have learned. So whenever you learn math, whatever you have learned earlier should be very clear. Then only you can build up your math on the higher levels. So when we try to take all the values, so let's see how many observations are there. 7, 14, 21, 28, and 35. These are the first 5 multiples of 7. So how do you find the arithmetic mean? Sum of all observations divided by the number of observations. Therefore, the required mean would be add all the numbers or add all the observations and divide them by 5, which is the number of observations. So you would get. So this is the very simple question. Okay, just wanted to recap on what you have learned earlier. That's why I just wanted to show you this little question. Let's move on to the next question. In this scenario, in these type of conditions, what are the possible ways that you can develop your thought process? For example, if one of the value is missing and you know the mean, how would you find out the value? So these are the things that you need to think and you need to develop your own method of finding out the value. So if you don't deal more with your thinking, then you won't be able to enjoy learning. So we move on to the next question where we can conceptualize this idea a little more clearly. So in this question, find the missing observation when a mean is given. So you have some observations and one of the observation here is missing and you are given the mean of it. So how would you find out? It's nothing but you can, and you have to develop your own method of finding it out. Okay, the way I have shown is a standard way most of the people practice it. But if you try to copy this, you will develop the skill of copying, but not the develop. You will not develop the skill of thinking. So it's more important for you to think in your own terms. How would I get this? So when you add all the values and divide by the number of observation, you get the mean. Therefore, the possibility of multiplying the mean with the number of observation will give you the sum of all observations. So once you know sum of all observations, you can find out the missing value easily. So you can pause the slide for a while and you can work out the similar type of questions from your textbook exercises. Okay, moving on to the next one. When you have a simple observations, for example, minimum number of observations, it is easy for you to add them. But if the observations are more, then what do you do? So there has been a way where you can arrange, okay, we can arrange that observation and put it in a frequency distribution. For example, the same value 12 repeats it for 14 times, 13 repeats for 4 times, the value age 14 repeats for 8 times. So the way you have to understand this frequency distribution will help you to work out the further questions more properly. So first you have to understand what does this frequency distribution mean to me. So when I look at this, what are these data? Usually we saw some observations scattered over there and then we try to add everything. So here how would it look like? If I just scatter it around, how would it look like? It will be 12, 12, 12, 12, 12, 12, 12, 12, which comes for 14 times, and 13, 13, 13, 13, 13, which comes for 4 times, and 14, 14, 14, which comes for 8 times, and 15 2 times, 16 5 times, and 17 7 times. So by now, you must have got a little idea how when you're given a large number of observations, how would you find out? Okay, so let's move on to the next question where we can work out that where we can use a different method. So this method is called a direct method. So here, how would you find out the mean? Okay, so here we have 60 observations. So the question is, find the mean of daily wages of 60 workers in a factory as per the data given below. So the daily wages are your observations and the number of workers are your frequency. There are 12 workers who get the salary as 90 per day. There are 14 workers who get their salary as 110. So if you want to randomly write all their salaries, it will be 90, 90, 90, 90, 90, 90, which goes for 12 times. So the simple way to find out the sum of all their wages, sum of all their wages would be 90 occurs 12 times, therefore 90 times 12. So you get all the people who get the salary of 90 together. Then the another type of salary that they get is 110. How many people are getting it in 110? 14 people. Therefore 110 received by 14 people. Therefore the product of that. So now you must have understood this tabular column a little more clearly. So we take the salary as our observation and the number of workers as a frequency. Therefore, the process of finding the sum of all the observation would be particularly multiply each observation with its frequency and then add up everything together. You would get the sum of all observation. So I think this is the easiest way that you can associate your thought process with a formula that helps you to remember and that helps you to master this concept more clearly. So in this view, so I have done this question for your reference. You can just go through this question, okay, and you can work out two more similar type of questions on this. What happens if the observations are slightly huge? For example, the given observation is more than thousands, or if they are in hundreds, so it would become a very big number. So because 1,000 comes for 20 times, so you will get 20,000. So they have devised another method to find out the mean in a simpler way. So what is that method? This is called the assumed mean method. So the process is very simple. They assume one of the observation to be a mean. Any observation can be the mean. So they assume something else. And then they redo, they do the reverse thinking. If I assume this value to be the mean, okay, how much each of the observation deviates from this? So I find the deviation of each observation from the value that I assumed as a mean. Okay, so that's the step 2. So I find out the deviation for this. For one value, one observation, the deviation is this much. Therefore that what you call that observation has this many frequencies. Therefore what is the total deviation for that particular observation? Therefore I have to multiply the frequency with the deviation for a particular observation. So when I add everything together, I get the deviation, the total deviation from there. So once I get the total deviation, then I find out the mean of the deviation. The simple way to find out is mean and take away from the mean. So therefore you will get the exact mean. So it's some interesting method. If you think little logically, you will understand it very clearly. So what do you see here as the formula? Mean equals A. So A is something that we have taken it as a mean, something that we have assumed. And sigma Fi di, the D refers deviation. How much each of the observation deviates from the mean that I have chosen, that I have assumed it to be. So which observation to take it as a assumed mean? Any value for that matter. You can take any value to be your assumed mean, but make sure. Okay, so the advantage is if you choose something in the center, then the calculations will become very simple to you. Okay, so you won't have much of negatives or positives. Okay, that's one of the way to do it. So let's see this idea in one of the questions. Okay, hope you can pause the video and go through the steps once again in case if you need more clarity on this. Okay, now in this question, okay, so go through this question. I have shown you the working. So randomly just think, look at the values first. 950, 1000, 1050, 1100 and 1250 and 1500 and 1600. Multiplies it for 24 times, 18 times, 13 times. See, these are the huge numbers. So if you're trying to use the direct method like 950 times 24, 1000 times 18, 1050 times 13, so this will give you large numbers. Okay, so there is an easy way to do it. Choose any of these observations, and you know that the weekly wages in rupees, they are taken as the observation, and the number of workers are taken as the frequencies in this question. So you assume anything to be the mean. For example, you can choose any of the values here. So 1100, so I choose 1100 to be the mean. Okay, so why did I choose this 1010 1100? Because it's exactly in the center. Therefore the deviations will become very simple numbers, so that the multiplication will become very easy for me. Okay, so when you look at the tabular column, first you write all observation, then you write all the frequency, then find out the deviation for each observation. You chose the mean to be 1100, but the actual observation in that first column is 950. How much it is deviating? So it's 150 less than the value that you have chosen. Therefore, the deviation is obtained by the particular observation in the column minus the mean that you have chosen. So xi minus 1100. So this is how you find out the deviation. And the last column that you see is the frequency times the deviation. So what do you get? The total deviation for that particular observation. So I'll explain the first part. The observation is 950. The frequency is 24. But I have chosen 1100 to be the assumed mean. Therefore, I'm trying to check how much this observation 950 deviates from the value that I have chosen. So it deviates, it's less than the value that I have chosen by 150. So one particular value is 150 less than the value that I have chosen. How many frequencies are there? How many such observations are there? 950 occurs 24 times. Therefore, the deviation would be 24 times 150. So the deviation would be for the all the observation in that column will be in that column. It will be minus 3600. Okay, similarly, I'm going to find out for all observations. So here I have three negatives and three positives and one zero. So I have to balance them properly. So make sure that you do a proper calculation on that. Otherwise, it will go wrong. Okay, so most of the students, okay, they make a lot of mistakes on this part. The multiplication is simple for them, but only this addition of these numbers become a little hard for them to do it. So please make sure add all the negatives, add all the positives, and then balance them, you get the value. Okay, so once you find the sum of all deviations and divide by the sum of all frequency, therefore you get the sum of, so you get the average of the deviation. Add that the average deviation with the value that you have chosen as the mean. So if you add them, you will get the exact mean. So this is called, okay, this is called assumed mean method. Okay, why do we use this method? When the observations are large in size, so we have to use a very little way to simplify our working. Okay, so these are the things that we have learned in this video. So I would be happy if you can go through this and then see if you can follow it up. Okay, so the chapter does not get over here. Okay, so we have further questions later. Okay, so there will be one more video to complete this chapter. Okay, so first go through this video and check whether you know the direct method and the assumed mean method. The purpose of this video is to help you understand what is direct method and assumed mean method. And I have shown you examples. Pause the video at your convenient time. Make sure that you develop a very good thought process and you develop a clear understanding of all these methods. Then you benefit. Don't copy my workings. Okay, so do a little logical thinking of how these methods are used. Okay, that will help you to learn it more clearly. That will help you gain confidence. So wish you all the best. Do well. We'll meet in the next video explaining you the further difficult level questions.